Dragon's Dogma 2 is now only weeks away from release. The highly anticipated RPG from Capcom has many people hyped, even if they are yet to play the original game. In this video, I'm going to break down absolutely everything we know about the game so that you can have the best experience possible on launch. There's also timestamps in this video to help you skip to the parts that you're most interested in, whether that be the story and vocations or quests and romance. So without further ado, let's get started. First up is the release details and key information about the game. Dragon's Dogma 2 will release on the 22nd of March 2024 for PS5, Xbox Series X and S and PC. The game will come in two editions, Standard and Deluxe. If you pre-order the Standard edition, you will get the Superior Weapons Quartet, a set of premium weapons for the start of Vocations that can be accessed from the Innkeeper game. If you purchase the Deluxe edition, you will gain access to the exclusive Explorer Camping Kit, in addition to many other items which you can see on screen here. These include basically a revive token and also 1500 Rift Crystals, which can be used to hire pawns or purchase special items. Now, one important thing to note is that whatever platform you play on, the game will only have one save slot. This may come as a surprise to many of you who maybe like to have multiple playthroughs on the go or like to reload your save. This decision by Capcom is to get players to have a game experience where you must face the repercussions of your decisions. The decisions the player makes and relationships with in-game characters is extremely important in this game, so make sure to remember this when you start your playthrough. I will be diving into how NPCs work later on, including your romance choices, so stay tuned for that. If you're a PC player, you'll be glad to know that most of you will be able to play this game on pretty high settings as the system requirements are not too demanding. Here we can see the minimum requirements on screen. It's recommended that you have an Intel i7-10700 or better and an RTX 2080 GPU to get the best out of this game. Of course, this isn't totally relevant for console players, but one key thing to note for PS5 players is that Capcom have confirmed that Dragon's Dogma 2 will not require a PC Plus subscription in order to use its online features, such as accessing your friend's pawns. Now, what about DLC? Currently, there is no confirmed DLC for Dragon's Dogma 2, however, I think it is very likely we will see DLC for the game based on the additional content that was added for the first game. The original Dragon's Dogma saw multiple quest packs added to the game, including From a Different Sky, which added in total 100 quests to the game. There were actually some DLC available upon release for the first game, with an extended version of the game titled Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen, which was released later on, which included all DLCs that were available for the original game. So although there are no concrete plans for DLC at the moment, definitely keep an eye out for this in the future. So what is the story all about in Dragon's Dogma 2? How is it similar to the first game, and should you have played the original before diving into the sequel? In this game, we will play as the Arisen, a hero who has their heart taken by a dragon and who has the mission of tracking down this dragon and reclaiming their heart. Along the way, we'll have to navigate the tense factions that occupy the world whilst leveling up our character and AI-controlled party members. Now, the good news for those of you jumping into this RPG for the first time is that you don't have to have played the original game before this one. This is because Dragon's Dogma 2 is set in a parallel world to the original game. Essentially, the game follows a similar story to the first game, but at a much deeper level, with features and mechanics that were not available to the developers the first time round and tons more detail. Now, we get a nice insight into the start of the story on the developer's website. The tease states, the story begins in an underground gully where the dragon's voice echoes in the fog of lost memories. Ascend, Arisen, and best me in accordance with the dogma of this world. Betwixt the domains of human and bestian, a hero must fulfill their forgotten destiny. What dogma does your heart see through your eyes? 'Tis a tale of one who shall slay the dragon and claim the throne. This is so cool. I cannot wait to dive into this game and create an awesome Arisen. Now, there are additional elements to the story in Dragon's Dogma 2 that happen alongside the quest to slay the dragon. The Arisen will navigate a storyline between two main nations of the world, Batal and Vermund. In Vermund, Disa, the Queen Regent, has set up a false Arisen with their own pawns in an interesting plot which we must unravel. Now, both nations recognise the dragon as the most important threat, but they both view the Arisen and their pawns in different ways. Over in Batal, which is the Beastren nation, they view pawns as a sign of misfortune. Instead, they worship the lambent flame and the Empress Nadinia. Overall, there will be some interesting storylines in Dragon's Dogma 2, with the Arisen ultimately having to navigate the complex two nations while trying to slay the dragon. There are tons of interesting characters that have been confirmed to be in the game, so let's take a look. Of course, we have Disa, the scheming queen regent of Vermund, who we mentioned earlier, but we also have her son Sven. Sven is a candidate to become the next ruler of Vermund and seems like he may be a little friendlier to the player than his mother. On the official website, we see that Sven is described as being not party to his mother's conspiracies and is concerned with doing what is right. Seems like a top guy. Now, another key figure in Vermund who we will come across is Brant. Brant is the captain of the palace guard and has supposedly been demoted among the royal court for opposing the Queen Regent. It's said that he will offer his support to us, so I'm sure he will be super helpful in the false Arisen storyline. Somebody else who will be super important in the story is Ulrika. We see her in the trailer briefly, and she is actually a young warrior who helps us out in a dragon attack by saving us and nursing us back to full health. I assume she will be pivotal in the early game when we are first finding our bearings. Now onto the Beastren characters. First up we have Nadinia, who is the leader of Batal and the high priestess to the lambent flame. She is described as a kind character and trusted by a lot of her people. Not much else is known about her, so it'll be interesting to see how she comes into play in the story. The other Beastren character that's been confirmed is Manella, a Beastren who leads the guard of the lambent flame, protecting the high priestess and her acolytes. She is described as fiercely loyal to the Empress, so she may be a bit of a problem should we get on the wrong side of Nadinia. Next up are two of my favourite characters. In case you missed it in the showcase, there will actually be an Elvish faction in the game, with a base on one of the forests home to two Elvish siblings. Now, there are a few other characters, most notably Lennart, Sigurd and Luz, who are super important. These are the vocation maesters that will allow us to unlock one of the advanced vocations if we befriend them, but more on them later in the video. Now that we know a bit about the story and the main factions in the game, what will the map be like and how will exploration work? The map in Dragon's Dogma 2 will be huge. The map is actually 4 times that of the one in the original game. For a sense of scale, take a look at this clip from the recent Tapey Games show. Here we see a small grey portion that has been explored, the massive world beyond when the camera zooms out. Now the great thing is this map will not be empty. The game's director has said that I don't want to go too far and make people think I'm exaggerating. We've placed items on the map and figured out ways to guide the player's eye so that there aren't any moments when they feel bored. This is great news, but the team have also made some additional development choices to make the map feel even more interesting. Dragon's Dogma 2 will have minimal markers on the map, which means you will have to seek out opportunities yourself. This is comparable to the likes of Elden Ring. The teams have also made some of the main landmarks in the map more difficult to find. They have added things called blinders in the landscape, which have been added to make sure that interesting landmarks are always not immediately visible so that we don't get bored too quickly. Overall, the map will be rewarding to explore whilst being very big in scale. Exploration is one of the key aspects of any RPG, so how will it work in Dragon's Dogma 2? Well, exploration will be very ground focused in this game. By this, I mean you will spend a lot of time roaming the land and stumbling across points of interest. In Dragon's Dogma 2, there will not be unrestricted fast travel. We will have to make our own way to many of the locations we wish to visit. There will be ox carts for us to use, but these will only run between certain locations. This approach will make us actually do more exploration on foot and hopefully appreciate more of the landscapes that we'll explore. It should also give us more encounters with NPCs, see more points of interest, and overall make for a more enjoyable exploration. What will enhance this exploration is that on top of the traditional quests that we'll stumble across, people will actually come up to our party and call out to us for aid. Our pawns will then go off by themselves to point out different points of interest or areas for us to explore. This all makes for a very dynamic way of adventuring. That being said, there will still be fast travel in the game. Players can use their ferry stones to travel between different port crystals, but this will be a limited resource. One of the most important aspects of any RPG is the character creator. In Dragon's Dogma 2, Capcom have made a detailed character creator to allow us to design a really cool Arisen. We will have 2 standard body types per race and 9 bodies per type, with over 100 real human faces that have been scanned into the game to help make a realistic looking character. You can go down 2 roads with this creator, using the sliders and detailed pointers to customize a character exactly how you want them, or you can use the image-based system where you select images of what you want your character to look like, which slowly evolves into your Arisen based on your selections. This is a great approach to the character creator and allows us to really get lost in the creative process. Crucially, you'll only have 2 races to choose from here, human or bestian. Unfortunately, although the elves are a new addition to the Dragon's Dogma franchise, they will not be playable. Nevertheless, the bestian is a new race who we can choose. The game's director has said that the team looked at the kinds of patterns and colours found in felines and made sure the kind of variety that players would surely want were included. So yes, you can customise the colours and patterns of your fur if you want to choose this race. We will get to fully customise one character and one pawn, with the other 2 pawns being from other players' games, but more on these pawns later. One crucial part of this game is choosing your class, or as they are referred to in Dragon's Dogma, your vocation. There are 4 starter vocations in Dragon's Dogma 2, with 6 more available for players to switch to when they get further into the game. Let's take a look at the 4 starter vocations first. The Thief is a fast and agile class specialising in close combat. This is a perfect vocation for you if you like getting up close and personal with enemies. It's been confirmed that the Thief will dual wield 2 daggers as their main weapons, and they will focus on using these weapons in quick succession to chain attacks. Thieves also have a unique ability called Swift Step, which allows them to dodge or swiftly step away when in combat. The Thief is kind of vulnerable to fighting groups, but the ability of the Thief to deal heavy damage when clinging onto enemies makes them perfect against bosses and larger monsters. When outside of combat, the Thief also has the unique ability of stealing items from NPCs and enemies. Overall, the Thief is a great choice if you like mobility and close combat. Next starter vocation is the Archer. Of course, this class focuses on long-range combat using the bow and arrow. This class is great for support in the front line, so you will be dealing physical range damage while your pawns fight in front of you. This class is especially effective against enemies that are tall or enemies that can fly. When ranking up the Archer, players will also be able to increase their rate of fire and have the ability to fire multiple arrows at enemies. This is a great class if you prefer ranged combat and want a solid physical damage based class. The spells and magic in Dragon's Dogma 2 look visually amazing, and if you want to really focus on this, then the Mage is for you. Mage can launch their own magic attacks, but also enchant your party members' weapons to improve their damage. They can also cast healing spells, so you definitely want to make sure you have one of these in your party. It's worth mentioning here that your pawns can be any of these starter vocations, so you can have a mage with you even if you don't want to play as one yourself. Pawns can also play as the advanced warrior and sorcerer, but more on them later. Another important thing to note about the mage is that the more advanced spells that you want to cast, the more time it will take, which can potentially leave you exposed. So you have to be strategic about when you want to cast different incantations as the mage. The last starter vocation is the Fighter. The Fighter is a sword and shield specialist that has great attack but also great defense. They will use one-handed weapons and are the only class in the game to wield a shield. With the shield, they can not only protect themselves but also the entire party. When you level them up, fighters have the Taunt ability, which can be used to direct attention to your character and away from your pawns, essentially acting as a tank. If you like the sound of tanking damage and would also prefer a balanced playstyle, then the Fighter would be a great pick for you. Next up is the 6 additional classes unlocked as you progress further into the game. These additional classes are split between advanced and hybrid classes. The advanced vocations are big upgrades of the starter vocations, while the hybrid classes combine different features of different classes. Let's take a look at the advanced classes first. First up is the Warrior. This is an upgraded version of the Fighter and can deal massive damage. They specialise in the use of two-handed weapons, with the most notable being the Greatsword and the Hammer. Making use of the Barge abilities with this vocation is also a great choice in combat, especially when combined with the sweeping attacks of the two-handed weapons to take out groups of enemies. Overall, the Warrior is an excellent choice for those of you who maybe enjoyed playing a Barbarian or Fighter in Baldur's Gate 3, or who just want to deal big damage to enemies. The next advanced class is the Sorcerer, a more aggressive variant of the Mage. When playing with the Sorcerer, you can use your staff and conjure very powerful attack spells. However, the downside is these spells take longer to cast. To overcome this though, you can use sync casting. Here, if you have a party member with the same spell, you can cast it together to shorten the casting time. It will be pretty cool to work together with members of your party to cast a massive fire incantation to rain down burning hell on a monster. If this sounds like your kind kind of playstyle, then the Sorcerer is definitely for you. Next up is the Mystic Spearhand. This is one of the hybrid vocations that will be exclusive to the Arisen and can only be unlocked by meeting specific requirements over the course of the game. One method of unlocking these hybrid vocations is to befriend a vocation maester. If you want to unlock the Mystic Spearhand, you will have to befriend Sigurd, the maester for this class. Mystic Spearhand combines both melee and magic, allowing you to harness both close range and long range attacks. If you go for this class, you will be using the Duo Spear weapon, which is unique to this vocation. Mystic Spearhand will be able to use the Duo Spear and their magic to paralyze enemies or hurl multiple objects at them. Honestly, this is one of the coolest classes in the game. The next hybrid vocation that is equally as cool is the Magic Archer. Making a return from the first game, the Magic Archer blends elements of the Mage and the Archer using a magic bow which does not consume arrows. Of course, it's great for long range, but the Magic Archer is also good for support as it has the ability to heal its allies. It also has a unique wide area attack that does devastating damage over a big area. This is a solid choice if you like magical ranged attacks. Now, the Trickster is a super cool vocation that can conjure illusions through the smoke created by its unique weapon, the Sensor. Tricksters can use illusions to deceive enemies into fighting against other enemies. They can also temporarily increase the power of pawns beyond their limits. If you like casting and deception, then this will surely be one for you. Now, one of the most unique classes in the game is the Warfarer. The Warfarer is the ultimate class if you want to experience everything in the game, as it can use every weapon. That's right, it can use big two-handed weapons, cast spells, and even use a bow, creating some amazing combos. They can also learn the different skills from each vocation. The only downside is that it has lower base stats when compared to the other classes. To counter this, you have to use the interchangeable weapons to come up with ways to defeat your opponents. You have to essentially customize it to suit each situation. I think this will be a super popular class in the game. What class will you guys be choosing in Dragon's Dogma 2? I would love to know what you guys like the look of, so let me know in the comments down below. Creating a powerful Arisen is a very important aspect of this game, but an equally important part of Dragon's Dogma 2 is your pawns. Pawns are the AI-controlled companions in the game that are members of your party. These are designed to make the adventure feel shared. Players can have up to 3 pawns in total. One of them we can create ourselves, customizing them in the same manner as the Arisen, but what's unique is that the other 2 will be pawns that are created by other players and put into your game. These will come with all of their experiences and gear that you may not have found yet, and so they could be really useful. What's important to know about pawns is that in Dragon's Dogma 2, they have a specialization or special ability which can be super helpful. For example, one of your pawns may have the ability to speak Elvish, helping you befriend the Elvish siblings. Another key detail you need to know about the pawns is that they can get Dragon's Plague. Over on Twitter, the team described the condition as the following. Dragon's Plague is a contagious disease that infects pawns. Infected pawns display remarkable performance and become conspicuously strong in their speech and behaviour. When it reaches a terminal stage, it is rumoured to result in devastating calamity. This is very mysterious, but gives us the unwelcoming possibility that we may have to fight our own pawns if they contract Dragon's Plague. Overall, pawns are much more intelligent in this game and will often guide the player to a quest or hint at an area of interest, forming a key part of our experience in the game. Now, how will NPCs and quests work? And will there be romance options in the game? Well, NPCs have been developed significantly from the first game with some great changes. IGN have reported that the game will feature a ridiculous number of NPCs and that they can give side quests to and build relationships with your Arisen. They've also stated that, as in the original game, NPCs can grow to like or dislike your character depending on your actions. What's new, however, is the added layer of NPCs liking or disliking you based on your behaviour toward other NPCs in their orbit. An example of this is if we do something nice for a child in the game, then their parents would like us more. Games director also said that NPCs may get into fights with each other if another NPC's relationship with the player threatens theirs. This all points to a quite detailed and nuanced NPC system, so be sure to take care when making decisions that can affect NPCs. Now, I'm pretty sure many of you are wondering, how will romance work? Well, in the first game, players could pretty much romance anyone in the game. The choices players made and their decisions when talking to NPCs eventually led to a surprise reveal at the end with a love interest that the game had chosen throughout the course of the game. Now, it's unclear if this exact system will be in Dragon's Dogma 2, but based on the pieces of information from the game's director, there will definitely be a romance system in the game. In a previous interview, he talked a lot about Ulrika being a heroine for our Arisen. He also hinted at being able to romance her. Taking this into account, I think there's a strong chance we can romance some of the main characters. But given the game's detailed NPC affinity system, I wouldn't rule out the ability to romance lots of the normal NPCs in the game too. We have some giant foes including Talos, the colossal titan who emerges from the sea, that we've seen in some of the gameplay, as well as minotaurs, golems and cyclopses. Obviously it's cool to have such large enemies in the game. I personally find it super fun to just try and fight enemies that are really big, but it will also mean we'll have added combat features of having to climb, grapple and swing around on them in order to try and defeat them. That's not all though, we have more monsters that hunt in packs including wolves, goblins and hobgoblins. We also have some more classic enemies such as the undead, slimes and skeletons. One enemy I'm particularly excited to face is the Chimera. This is a four-legged, three-headed monster that bears features of the lion, goat and serpent, with each head having its own method of attack. I can't wait to try and figure out how to dodge all the different methods of attack whilst trying to take this one down. We also have the cool looking Sphinx. This is a unique boss that guards some treasure in the game, but it will also be quite difficult to find and even fight in the first place. The game's director has said that defeating the Sphinx is a riddle in itself. We wanted to make the very question of whether it could be defeated or even fought into a mystery, and we'd like that to be a part of the fun players have dealing with the Sphinx and its riddles. Players will need to find the Sphinx in the first place if they can. The journey to finding it might actually be the biggest mystery of all. This sounds very cool and I'm looking forward to trying to find this boss and see what the mystery is all about. Now these are just some of the enemies in the game and I am sure there will be many more that have not been specifically named by the team, including probably some other human and beast-run characters. Combat in Dragon's Dogma 2 has generally been reported as very comfortable and enjoyable. This is thanks in part to a lack of a lock-on system which allows you to take in the battlefield fully and freely navigate around enemies. The combat in Dragon's Dogma 2 will be heavily situational. It will entirely depend on what vocation you are currently running and what enemy you are up against. For example, an archer against some goblins will have to keep their distance and use ranged attacks whilst pawns get up close and personal. On the other hand, a warfarer fighting Talos may need to use all of their different abilities to try and climb onto the enemy and attack the giant's weak points. It will also depend on what vocations your pawns have. If you are running a warrior and a fighter, then you may want to consider trying to get as close to enemies as possible before engaging. But for some tips, we can definitely say for sure you want someone in your party to be a mage so you can get that healing capacity. You also want to avoid travelling at night if possible, as the game is hinted at being more challenging at this time. You also want to make sure you are resting frequently, as each fight will deplete your ability to take on another enemy effectively. This is because every hit will reduce a portion of your max health, and the only way to restore this is by either going to an inn and resting for the night or finding a campfire. This is a really cool aspect of the game that I'm sure will make it feel like an authentic adventure. This game is looking like a serious contender for one of the best games of 2024 and I'm super excited to play it. What do you guys think of Dragon's Dogma 2 so far, and what part of the game are you most excited for? Let me know in the comments down below. Also, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more RPG gaming news. As always, thank you for watching, see you next time.